よし。それではえーっと、あ、あ、あ、OK かな。よし、やっていくか。やりますか。タイムアタックします。もうここで詰まったらあれなんだよね。もう無理なんだよな。なんかもう全然通路ちげえしよ。 なにこれもうくっそー。やべ。こうなんだな、多分。で、こういうことか。で、あと下だよな。こうやったらダメだしな。ではダメだよな。わかんない。これじゃいけねえし。てか、ダメじゃん。いや、3個だな。これダメだな。お疲れです。違う。めっちゃ簡単。いや、全然よ。時間切れです。どんどんやっていこう。どんどん。わかんね。わかんね。これダメだ。このさ、ガチャも大事だよな。全然わかんない。わかんない。 全然わかんない。こいつがどこに行くんだ。こんな考えてる時間ねえよな。あー、わかった。もうくっそ。悔やむな、これは。わかったっつってわかんねえわ、これ。あ、わかったとか言ってわかんねえやつだ、これ。やべ。できてねえし。こうか。どっちかな。ちょっと待って、もう一回やっていい？もう一回。ちょっと、これは、あ、そうだ。間違えて、もう一回、やって、あー、やべ。こっちだ。あ、もう時間か。もう、無理だ。こっからは無理だもん。違うな。ちょっと、もう一回やろう。ここで手こずってたらダメなんだよな。できねえんだよな。もう一回。こうしようぜ。いやーもう、やべ。よし。よし、簡単。ガチャ成功。よし。え、これかな？これかな？違うな。これだ。あ、違う。これか？これだ。よし、来た。頼む、簡単なやつ。えーっと。 ダメだ。112。あー、違うな。はあ、違うな。くそ。待って待って。あー、でも大丈夫だ。まだ時間ある。まだ時間ある。まだ時間ある。まだ時間ある。まだ時間ある。これガチャ失敗。もう一回。わかんない。わかんないやつはもっと。わかんなかったらもう本当に手こずんないで、普通に。簡単なやつで。ほんと簡単なやつでお願いします。はあ、最後縦か。じゃあ、こっちから。こういうこと ?1、1、2、1、2、1、1、2。探すだけ。間に合わない。これやってきたとしても、絶対間に合わんだよな、俺。きちいな。きちい。1。これ1して、ダメだ、最後縦じゃないとできねえ。なら。わかんねえな。わかんない。ここか。よし。オッケー、いけ。行かしてくれ。頼む、本当に。くっそ。そっちの方が簡単？絶対しよう。すげえ。間に合わない。いや、これきちいぞ、マジで。これむずいな、てか。ちょっと待ってくれよ。黒点が無事。できたとしてもこれがまた来るでしょ、絶対。三角形だな。三角形が鬼門だわ。きちい、あれ。好きじゃねえな、あれは。嫌いだわ。これもうダメでしょ。間に合わないし、もう。あ、 かんねえ。わかんない。どうしよう。この時点であれだよな。できない。うわ、マジで簡単じゃねえか。これも無理だよな。時間間に合わねえ。絶対間に合わん。ああいう複雑なやつはさ、ガチャ。これないでしょ。これで。でもこれだと無理で。じゃあこれしかねえな。これをはめていく。3個。1、こっからでしかできない。ここまでか。こうか。こう。まあもう間に合わないんですけどね。もうじりじりじり。行かせろ。バカ。なんかいけそうでいけないのかな、これ。腹立つな。いや、いけないし、いけないし、いけないでしょ、これ。いけない、いけない、いけない、いけないよ。これしかない、これしかない、これしかない、これしかない。これしかないよな。上からか。ああ、もう終わったわ。まあ、あと1分くらいしかないでしょ。じりじりじりってなったら。まあ、なんて、できねえ。できたーくない。できてない。できてねえ。じゃあ、こうすればいいのか。くっす。いや、できない。いや、絶対できない。絶対できなくね、これ。だとしたら。できないな。これもできないじゃん。どこだ。いや、できるんじゃね？できそうだけど。くそ、できそうでできねえ。てかもう時間ねえ。最初のあの語彙問題で詰まったせいだな。あんな問題に。逆にこうか。 ダメだ。難しいよ。難しいよ。いいよ、これで。ここでつまらないか。つまるかつまらないか。ちょっと悩むな。なんかもう、なんか難しいみたい。難しい。なんでこんな単純な問題にこんな時間かけなきゃいけないんだ。でだよ。辛いのか。ちょっと助けて、わかんねえ。こんな時間かけたら無理じゃん、もう。本当に。やったことあるぞ、これ。過去問が来た。もうやったことあるよな。多分。やった、過去問出たわ。やっぱ、全部ランダムってわけじゃないや。一通りとか何通りかあるわね。マジか。ちょっと待ってくれ。ちょっと待ってくれよ。こうね。まだだった。終わりじゃない？これ絶対違う。ぽいのある。ぽいのがある。ぽいのが、これだ。クソ余裕。頼む、出てきて。丁寧に。丁寧に。いや、なんか、やばい。クソむずそう。めっちゃ簡単だった。あと一個、あと一個。よしよしよし。マジでいける。マジでいける。本当にいける。この次だろ？お願い、お願い、本当にお願い。本当にお願い。本当にお願い。えーっと、えーっと、えーっと。 焦ったら負けだな。なるほど。なるほど、なるほど。なるほど。なるほどね。こうか。まずこうして、こうして、あとこうじゃね。こう。マジで、本当にお願い。本当にお願い。本当にお願い。本当にお願い。マジで本当にお願い。白1個。白3個。これ書くか。こうか。して、で、囲むと、じゃあこっからか。こう囲む。なるほど。くっそ、どうやってやんだ。くっそ、いけんのに。黒色。まだ。めちゃめちゃいいペースだったのにな。結構いいペースだったのに。クリアあるかこれ。クリアしたいな。いや、これは。こうか。いや、違う。いや、違う。最後に取るか、これ。 ガチサービス、ガチサービス。サービスだ。こういうのがマジで運なんだよな。こういうのが来るか来ないかで、マジで変わってくる。あとはこれよ。あとはこの、三角形のパズル。なんでこんなにあるんだ。意外とできるかもしれない。けどな、ちょっとこれは厳しい。1212312312121ないの？出てくれ。来てくれ。来て。違う。ああ、違う。いや、いけるの。いけるの。いけるの。いけるの。いけるの。いけるの。いや、いけるのにな。きちい。もうチリチリだろ。くっそ、腹立つわ。わかんねえ。単純なのになあ。あー、できた。よし。で、どっちから先やればいいんだろう。どっちが簡単なの？なるほど。これはもう、あれじゃん。あー、だから、こうで、塞がっちゃうの。くっそうぜ。あとはこいつを囲むだけでしょ。だから、ここで、どこと？これでいいんじゃないの？違うな。もうやめた。こっち。来た。何？あれ？もうやらしてくんないのこれ。これはやらしてくれないんだ。嘘。これなの？俺なんか、俺、こいつの話聞かないといけない。写真撮ろう。マジか。これか。これなのか。俺めっちゃ頑張ってこの嘘。あ、次か。 じゃあ街行くか。街行ってこれを移すか。いや、あのおじさんの話聞かないといかないの。俺全然聞いてねえわ。メモとか全く写真撮ってねえし。うん。いや、クリアしちゃったよ。めっさ簡単だったわ。クソ余裕だったわ。意外といけた。最後はなんかもう、とりあえず、別に、間違えても暗くなんねえし、とりあえずポンポンポンポンやってたら、当たってたわ。そんな気持ちよくないけど、頑張ったんで。やったっけこれ。やってねえじゃん。いけねえわ。よし、じゃあこれ移すか。ちょっと待ってよ。なんだあそこは。まあ、いっか。とりあえず、一個もやってないけど。そしたら、どの視点だろう、俺。こっちかな。こうダメだか。こうか。終わりってこと？
How many of you here have personally witnessed a total eclipse of the sun? To stand one day in the shadow of the moon is one of my humble goals in life. The closest I ever came was over 30 years ago. On February 26, 1979, a solar eclipse passed directly over the city of Portland. I bought my bus tickets and found a place to stay, but in the end, I couldn't get the time off work. Well, anyone who lives in Portland can tell you that the chances of catching the sun in February are pretty slim. And sure enough, the skies over the city that day were completely overcast. I wouldn't have seen a thing. That work I couldn't get out of was my first job out of college. A sales clerk at an old Radio Shack store in beautiful downtown Worcester, Massachusetts. On my very first day behind the counter, a delivery truck pulled up to the front of the store. They carried in a big carton, upon which was printed the legend TRS-80. It was our floor sample of the world's first mass-market microcomputer. The TRS-80 Model 1 had a Z80 processor clocked at 1.7 MHz, 4,096 bytes of memory, and a 64-character black and white text display. The only storage was a cassette recorder. All this could be yours for the low, low price of $599. The store I was working in had seen better days. At one time, it had been near the center of a thriving commercial district. But like so many other New England cities, the advent of shopping malls had, by the early 70s, turned it into a ghost town. Worcester's solution to this problem was decisive, to say the least. The city's elders apparently decided that if they couldn't beat them, they would join them. And so, several square blocks at the heart of the city were bulldozed into oblivion, destroying dozens of family businesses, including the site of a pharmacy once operated by my great-grandfather. In their place was erected a vast 3-level shopping complex with cinemas and a food court. When the dust settled, only a few forlorn blocks of the old Worcester remained standing. My Radio Shack store was in one of those blocks. Then, to add insult to injury, Radio Shack opened a brand new location inside the shopping center, less than 500 feet from my store. So now patrons had a choice between a clean, well-lighted establishment with uniformed security and acres of convenient parking, or a shadowy hole in a seedy old office building next to an adult movie theater. Consequently, I had plenty of time to fool around with the new computer. I taught myself basic programming. Then I learned Z80 assembly, both, of course, so that I could write games. I also created self-running animated demos, which ran all night in the store window for the edification of the winos who peed in our doorway. Strangely enough, the few customers we had didn't seem to be interested in our new computer, even after the 16K memory upgrade. In fact, most of the people who set off the buzzer on their way through the front door weren't there to buy anything at all. They were there to exploit a free promotion, which was the bane of Radio Shack employees for over 40 years. The Battery of the Month Club. The idea of this promotion was simple. Customers got a little red card upon which was printed a square for each month. 12 times a year, the lucky sales clerk got to punch out a square and give the customer one brand new AAA, AA, C, D, or 9-volt battery. Of course, customers weren't allowed to choose just any grade of battery. At the time of my employment, Radio Shack offered 3 different levels of battery excellence. First were the alkalines, powerful, long-lasting, and expensive, hanging behind the counter like prescription medication in gold-embossed blister packs. These were most certainly not available through the Battery of the Month Club. Next were the high-end lead batteries, sturdy, dependable batteries, moderately priced, and prominently displayed near the front of the store. These were also not available through the Battery of the Month Club. Finally, at the bottom of the barrel were the standard lead batteries. These were literally piled in barrels, cunningly located way at the back of the store, in a dark corner near the TV antennas. Remember TV antennas? Customers who came in looking for their free Battery of the Month had to walk the entire length of the premises, past the CB radios and stereo headphones and remote-controlled racing cars. Nothing would stop them. On the first day of every month, like clockwork, those customers came in waving their little red cards. I would look up from my programming and wave them to the back of the store. It didn't matter that the batteries were only worth 29 cents. It didn't matter that most of them were already half dead. They came, they grabbed. And as far as I can remember, not one of them ever paid for a damned thing. I was such a crappy salesman. I was young and foolish. I thought my education in game design was happening at the keyboard. I almost missed the lesson coming through the front door. Fortunately, I wasn't the only person fooling around with games on micros. All over the country, people like me were experimenting. Scott Adams was coding what would soon become the world's first commercial adventure game. Remember adventure games? My future employer, Infocom, was being founded, along with other legendary companies like Online Systems, Sirius, Personal Software, and SSI. Those were exciting times. Teenagers were making fortunes. Games were cheap and easy to build. The slate was clean. But in 1979, the biggest news in gaming had nothing to do with computers. On the morning of the autumn equinox, September 20th, a new children's picture book appeared in the stores of Great Britain. This picture book was rather peculiar. It consisted of 15 meticulously detailed color paintings, illustrating a slight, whimsical tale about a rabbit delivering a jewel to the moon. On the back jacket of the book was a color photograph of a real jewel, shaped like a running rabbit, 5 inches long, fashioned of 18-karat gold, suspended with ornaments and bells, together with a sun and moon of blue quartz. According to the blurb underneath, this very jewel had been buried somewhere in England. Clues pointing to its location were concealed in the text and in the pictures of the book. The treasure would belong to whoever found it first. The book was called Masquerade. It was created by an eccentric little man with divergent eyes and a talent for mischief named Kit Williams. Within days, the first printing was sold out, and the empire that never sleeps found itself in the grip of rabbit fever. Excited readers attacked the paintings with rulers, compasses, and protractors. Magazine articles and TV specials dissected the clues, floated theories, and followed with keen delight the reckless exploits of the fanatics. One obscure park, unfortunately known by the nickname Rabbit Hill, was so riddled with holes excavated by misguided treasure seekers that the authorities had to erect signs assuring the public that no gold rabbits were to be found there. Some hunters ended up seeking psychological counseling for their obsession. The craze leapt over the Atlantic Ocean and invaded America, France, Italy, and Germany. It sold over 1 million copies in a few months, a record unrivaled by any children's title until the advent of Harry Potter. Over 150,000 copies were sold in foreign translations, including 80,000 copies in Japanese, despite the fact that the puzzle was only solvable in English. It didn't matter that the Masquerade jewel was only worth a few $1,000s. Many seekers spent far more than that in their months of exploration and travel. It was the thrill of the chase, the possibility of being the one. Treasure hunts, secret messages, and hidden things seem to exert an irresistible appeal. They're fun to look for and to talk about, and this fact of human psychology has been exploited in computer games since the earliest days. It finds expression in the hidden surprises we call Easter eggs. Atari's Stephen Wright is credited with coining this term in the first issue of Electronic Games magazine. The first Easter egg in a commercial computer game appeared in an early Atari 2600 cartridge called, simply enough, Adventure. By a sequence of unlikely movements and obscure manipulations, players could discover a secret room where the words "Created by Warren Robinette" appeared in flashing letters. Over the decades, Easter eggs and their evil twin, cheat codes, have become an industry within an industry. Entire magazines and websites are now devoted to their carefully orchestrated discovery and dissemination. They're part of our toolkit, our basic vocabulary, the language of computer game design. Computer gamers may have been the first to refer to hidden surprises as Easter eggs, but we certainly weren't the first to use them. Painters, composers, and artists of every discipline have been hiding stuff in their works for centuries. The recent advent of VCRs and Laserdisc players with freeze-frame capability exposed decades of secret Disney erotica. Thomas Kincaid, the self-appointed painter of light, amuses himself by hiding the letter N in his works. A number beside his signature indicates how many N's are hidden in each painting. Picasso, Dali, Raphael, Poussin, and dozens of other painters concealed all kinds of stuff in their paintings. A favorite trick was hiding portraits of themselves, their families, friends, and fellow artists in crowd scenes. El Greco loved dogs, but the Catholic Church forbid him from including any in his sacred paintings. So he hid them, usually within the outlines of celestial clouds. Composer Dmitri Shostakovich chafed under the political censorship imposed by the Soviet Ministry of Culture. His symphonies and chamber works are loaded with hidden signatures and subversive subtexts which, had they been recognized, would have sent him to Siberia. Mozart's opera, The Magic Flute, is filled with musical allusions to the rituals of the Freemasons, the ancient secret society of which he and his mentor Haydn were members. But the most famous purveyor of Easter eggs is that champion of the late Baroque, the ultimate musical nerd, Johann Sebastian Bach. Bach was a student of gematria, the art of assigning numeric values to letters of the alphabet. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, etc. By comparing, sequencing, or otherwise manipulating these numbers, secret messages can be concealed. Bach took particular delight in the geometrical numbers 14 and 41. 14 is the sum of the initials of his last name. B equals 2, A equals 1, C equals 3, and H equals 8. 41 is the sum of his expanded initials, J.S. Bach. These two numbers show up over and over again in Bach's compositions. One of the better-known examples is his setting of the chorale Vor deinem Thron. The first line of the melody contains exactly 14 notes, and the entire melody, from start to finish, contains 41. Another of Bach's favorite games was the puzzle canon. A canon is a melody that sounds good when you play it on top of itself, a little bit out of sync. Frere Jacques and Row, Row, Row Your Boat are familiar examples of simple, two-voice canons. But a canon can employ any number of voices, and you don't have to play each voice the same way either. You can change the octave, transpose the key, invert the pitch, play it backwards, or any combination. Finding melodies that make good multi-voice canons is a fussy and difficult art, of which Bach was an undisputed master. Now, in a puzzle canon, the composer specifies the basic melody and the number of voices, but not the relationship of the voices. The student has to figure out the position and key of each voice, and whether to perform them inverted and/or backwards. Bach wrote quite a number of puzzle canons. The most famous, BWV 1076, is part of a fascinating story. One of Bach's students was a fellow by the name of Lorenz Misler, founder of the Society
おい、
of
これ、
Musical
皆既
Science.
日食するまで待
This
たねえといけ
elite,
ないのか。こ
invitation
こいつの
only
話聞かねえとい
institution
けないのか。
devoted
これ。
itself to the study of
皆既日食
Pythagorean
終わるまで。
philosophy and the union of music and
もう、
mathematics.
読
Its
むの
distinguished
疲れた
membership
んだけど。
reads like a who's who of German composers, including Handel,
こんなに
Telemann, and
疲れる
eventually
よ、これ。
Mozart. Applicants for membership in the society were required to submit an oil portrait of themselves, along with a specimen of original music. With nerdly efficiency, society member number 14 decided to combine these admission requirements into a single work. He sat for a portrait with Elias Haussmann, official artist at the court of Dresden. This portrait, which now hangs in the gallery of the town hall in Leipzig, is the only indisputably authentic image of Bach in existence. The Haussmann portrait shows Bach dressed in a formal coat with exactly 14 buttons. In his hand is a sheet of music paper, upon which is written a puzzle canon for 6 simultaneous voices. In 1974, a manuscript was discovered which proved that this canon was the 13th in a series of exactly 14 canons based on the ground theme of the famous Goldberg variations. As if these musical gymnastics weren't enough, Bach liked to hide messages in his compositions by assigning notes to the letters. His initials, B-A-C-H, correspond to the pitch sequence B flat, A, C, and B natural in German letter notation. This theme makes its most memorable appearance in the last bars of his final composition, The Art of Fugue, published soon after his death in 1750. The word fugue comes from the Latin fuga, which means flight, as in running away. So the art of fugue is the art of flight, the art of taking a theme and running with it. Bach wrote hundreds of fugues, but none as sublime as this sequence of 14. In the last and most complicated fugue in the series, the first and second sections develop normally. This is followed by the B-A-C-H signature, and then suddenly, without any warning or structural justification, the fugue stops, dead in its tracks. One of the composer's 20 children, his son Carl Philipp Emanuel, claimed that Bach died moments after those last few notes were written. This story is probably apocryphal. The Easter eggs in Bach's music are a pleasant obscurity, known chiefly to professors and students of Baroque music. But in March of 2002, when this lecture was first delivered, those Easter eggs were the talk of the entire classical music industry. Sitting near the top of the classical music charts that month was a compact disc on the ECM label called Morimer. It was performed by the Hilliard Choral Ensemble, together with a talented but, until then, little-known violinist, Christoph Poppen. The music on Morimer is based on a geometrical analysis of Bach's Partita in D minor for solo violin. This analysis, by German professor Helga Thon, assigns numeric values to the duration of notes, the number of bars, and the German letter notation of the partita. In doing so, she claims to have discovered the complete text of several liturgical ceremonies encoded in the notes. The CD presented these hidden texts superimposed over the original music. The result was strangely melancholy, dark, haunting, and very, very popular. Quite a few music critics attacked this disc. They didn't buy Professor Thon's analysis, dismissing it as a combination of numerology and canny marketing. Their caution was not without basis. Numerology is a slippery slope down which many a fine mind has slid to its doom. Allow me to offer an amusing anecdote from my own experience. Back in the early 90s, before the internet took off, one of the more popular online bulletin board systems was a service called Prodigy. I bought an account on Prodigy so I could join a fraternal interest group and gossip with fellow members around the country. One day, a stranger appeared on our bulletin board. Right away, I knew we were in trouble. This fellow, whose name was Gary, began spouting all kinds of apocalyptic nonsense about worldwide conspiracies, secret societies, and devil worship. At first, we tried to be polite. We questioned his sources, corrected his histories, logically refuted his claims, and tried to behave in a civilized manner. But instead of soothing him, our attention only made him worse. His conspiratorial warnings became urgent, approaching hysteria. He began to threaten people who disagreed with him. To coin a phrase, Gary went all uppercase. But his most urgent warnings weren't about the gays, the Jews, the Rockefellers, or the Illuminati. According to Gary, the greatest enemy of mankind was Santa Claus. Gary claimed to possess a secret numerical formula that proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that Santa Claus was an avatar of the Antichrist. Intrigued, we pressed Gary to reveal his formula. In doing so, we walked right into his trap. We should have known he had a book to sell. I fell for it. I sent him the $15. Less than a week later, the book arrived. Above an ominous photograph of the Washington Monument was emblazoned the title, 666, The Final Warning. Inside this privately printed 494-page monster, Gary reveals a simple geometrical formula, which he claims was developed by the ancient Sumerians. This formula assigns successive products of 6 to each letter of the alphabet. A equals 6, B equals 12, C equals 18, etc. Imagine my dismay when I applied this ancient formula to the name Santa Claus and obtained the blasphemous sum of 666, the biblical number of the beast. I went on Prodigy and reported to the stunned members of our interest group that Gary was right after all. There could be no doubt that according to the unimpeachable wisdom of ancient Samaria, Santa Claus was the Antichrist. I then went on to point out several other names which, when submitted to Gary's formula, also produced the sum 666. Names like St. James, New York, and New Mexico. Soon the bulletin board was filled with discoveries like computer, Boston tea, and most sinister of all, sing karaoke. Gary left us alone after that. I
Karaoke.
got my $15 worth. But Gary is hardly the first person to connect secret codes to the Bible. People have been looking for Easter eggs in the Bible for hundreds of years. The Hebrew mystical tradition of Kabbalah can be described as a geometrical meditation on the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Old Testament. The advent of computers has made the application of numerology to the Bible fast and efficient. The latest spate of Bible searching was instigated by a book published in 1998 by Michael Drosnin, a former Wall Street Journal reporter. His book, The Bible Code, applied a skip cipher in which every nth character in a text is combined to form a message. By applying his skip cipher to the Hebrew text of the Old Testament, Drosnin claimed to have discovered predictions of World War II, the Holocaust, Hiroshima, the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin and both Kennedys, the moon landing, Watergate, the Oklahoma City bombing, the election of Bill Clinton, the death of Princess Di, and the comet that collided with Jupiter. He also found predictions of a giant earthquake in LA, a meteor hitting the Earth, and nuclear Armageddon, all scheduled to occur before the end of the last decade. The Bible Code spent many weeks on the bestseller lists, spawning several sequels and dozens of imitators. The Bible has certainly attracted its share of crackpots, but for the real hardcore egg hunters, nothing can rival the ingenuity, the tenacious scholarship, the stubborn zeal of those who seek the answer to the ultimate literary puzzle. A poisonous conundrum that has squandered fortunes, destroyed careers, and driven healthy, intelligent scholars to the brink of madness and beyond. Who wrote Shakespeare? The essays and books devoted to the Shakespeare authorship problem are sufficient to fill a large library. Several such libraries actually exist. Not even a day-long tutorial, much less an hour lecture, can begin to do justice to this complex, bizarre, and dangerously tantalizing story. Nevertheless, for the unacquainted, I will attempt to summarize the issue in a few paragraphs. The undisputed facts of Shakespeare's life and career could be scribbled on the back of a cocktail napkin. We know for a fact that a man named William Shakespeare was born in 1564 in or around the village of Stratford-upon-Avon. We know that he had a wife and at least 3 children. We know he bought property in Stratford, was involved in several lawsuits with his neighbors, and died there in 1616, aged 52. We also know that during those same years, a man with a last name similar to Shakespeare worked as an actor on the London stage, eventually becoming co-owner of some of the theaters there. We also know that about the same time, a number of most excellent poems and plays were published in London under the name Shakespeare. We do not know for a fact that the landowner in Stratford and the actor in London with a similar last name were one and the same man. We do not know for a fact that either man had anything to do with the poems and the plays. All we know is that those poems and plays have, in the 400 years since their composition, come to be regarded as a pinnacle of Western culture. The works attributed to Shakespeare appear to have been written by a man or woman who knew something about just about everything. They're filled with references to mythology and classic literature, games and sports, war and weapons of war, ships and sailing, the law and legal terminology, court etiquette, statesmanship, horticulture, music, astronomy, medicine, falconry, and, of course, theater. Therein lies the problem. How could a farmer's son of uncertain schooling, from a mostly illiterate country village, a man of practically no account at all, wield such encyclopedic learning, with so much eloquence and wit, so much wisdom and human understanding? For the first 150 years, nobody questioned the traditional history of the bard. Then, in the late 18th century, Reverend James Wilmot, a distinguished scholar who lived just a few miles north of Stratford, decided to write a biography of the famous playwright. Dr. Wilmot believed that a man as well educated as Shakespeare must have owned a fairly extensive library, despite the fact that not a single book or manuscript is mentioned in his will. Over the years, he speculated, some of those books must have found their way into local collections. And so, the good Reverend Doctor scoured the British countryside, taking inventory of literally every bookshelf within 50 miles of Stratford. Not a single book from the library of William Shakespeare was discovered. Neither were there found any letters to, from, or about Shakespeare. Furthermore, no references to the folklore, local sayings, or distinctive dialect of the Stratford area could be found in any of Shakespeare's writings. After 4 years of painstaking research, Dr. Wilmot concluded, to his own dismay, that only one person contemporary with Shakespeare of Stratford had ever demonstrated the wide-ranging education and expressive talent needed to compose those poems and plays. That man was the multilingual author, philosopher, and statesman, inventor of the scientific method, chancellor to the courts of Queen Elizabeth and King James, Sir Francis Bacon. Dr. Wilmot never dared to publish his theory, but before he died, he confided it to a friend, James Cowell, who, in 1805, repeated it to a meeting of the Ipswich Philosophical Society. The members of the society were suitably outraged, and the scandalous matter was quickly forgotten. Then, in 1857, a lady from Stratford, Connecticut, published a book called The Philosophy of the Plays of Shakespeare Unfolded. In this book, Miss Delia Bacon, no relation to Francis, claimed that the works of Shakespeare were written by a secret cabal of British nobility, including Sir Walter Raleigh and Sir Philip Sidney, as well as Sir Francis Bacon. Delia Bacon's book electrified the world of letters. Battle lines were drawn between the orthodox Stratfordians and the heretical Baconians. Literary societies and scholarly journals were formed to debate the evidence. Hundreds of pamphlets, newspaper articles, and essays were published defending each side and ridiculing the opposition with that self-aggrandizing viciousness peculiar to tenured academics. Armed with her explosive book, Delia Bacon journeyed to Stratford-upon-Avon and, unbelievably, obtained official permission to open Shakespeare's grave. However, when the moment came to actually lift the stone, Delia's self-doubt precipitated a catastrophic nervous breakdown. She later died. To please his sponsors or to win the approval of an audience. His work was his worship. Bach once wrote, "Music should have no other end and aim than the glory of with Jupiter." He also found predictions of a giant earthquake. Francis Bacon had written extensively on the subject of cryptography. Donnelly began counting line and page numbers, adding and subtracting letters, drawing lines over sentences, circling words, and crossing them out. The result was a complex and virtually incomprehensible algorithm, which he claimed was invented by Bacon to hide secret messages inside the first folio. The greatest Easter egg hunt in the history of Western civilization had begun. Here are just a couple of the sillier highlights. A doctor named Orville Owen of Detroit constructed a bizarre research tool he called the Wheel of Fortune. This wheel consisted of two giant wooden spools wrapped with a strip of canvas 2 feet wide and 1,000 feet long. Onto this canvas, he glued the separate pages of the complete works of Bacon, Shakespeare, Marlowe, Greene, Peele, and Spencer, together with Burton's Anatomy of Melancholy. By cranking the spools back and forth, Dr. Owen could quickly zip across the pages in search of clues and cross-references. Employing a wildly subjective famous bust of the and just barely conceals it for eternity.
飛ばしちゃった。 1時間らしい。てか、絶対1時間見ねえよ。バカか。1時間見るか。頭おかしいやろ。えなんでこれできない？裏か。ごめん、チャット見てなかったわ。まさか見てるとは思わなかった。裏見てたもしかして。えうーん。いや、とりあえず終わったわ。これ行きたいんだけど。これどこから行くの俺は。行けるっしょ。どっかから。あれはなんだ？砂漠から行くのかな？いや、1時間なんて見るわけないじゃん。めんどくさい。1時間。聞く気失せる。こっち地下行けんだよね。これ行ってみるか。あれちょっと待って。ちょっと待ってよ。オッケーオッケー。多分この地下でしょ。地下あるし。あれこれくっそ久々に来たわ。どうやって地下行くんだっけ？下行くんだっけ？くっそ懐かしい。こっちか。あ、やっべ。めちゃめちゃ懐かしいな。うわぁ。絶対風景やってた。さすが。あるじゃん。これ多分数えきれねえほどあるぞ、これ。きめえ。いや、葉っぱ。あれこれで、あ なんかあるわ。ええなんだっけこれ。うわー懐かしい。なにこのウィーンは。ああ、角度か。どうやっていくの？こっち側に、ここが多分地上のエレベーターだよな。だよな。で、この先が、なんか封じてあったんだよ。なんかあるわ。入れないの？入れないと。どうやったら入れるんだい？いや、なんかいけそうだけどな。まあ、とりあえずクリアしたんで。とりあえずクリアした。まあ、クリアはした。もう、チャレンジ終わったんで。最終ステージはもう終わったんで、じゃあとりあえずエンディング見て終わるか。 さて、これで、あれじゃあエンディング見ますか。終わりです、もう。もう終わり。
A star at dawn.
これで俺の努力が全部踏み消しられます。
A bubble
A bubble in a stream.
in a stream.
ここ久々にやりてえな。コンペイトーエリア。久々にやろうかな。
A flash of lightning in a summer cloud.
Flash of lightning, flash in a summer cloud.
A flickering lamp. A flickering lamp.
Flickering light.
ちょっと待って。 ない。
A phantom.
A phantom.
Phantom.
A phantom.
おう。おう。オーマイガー。オーマイガー。これはオーマイガーだ。で、これで一番最初からになるということですかね。
And a dream.
And a dream.
And a dream.
あたたたたあたたたたたたそして落とされると。落とすのいらなくない？落とすのいいよな、別に。いらないよね。アンダーテールなんてないんだから。